All right. Welcome back to Illini Bears Talk. We have a very special guest for you guys today. Some may call him a voice of reason within the Bears community, given everything that's going on. He's also a former Illini, just like us. Well, actually, we're going to Illinois right now. But yeah, we're thrilled to welcome Rishab, aka DaWindyCity Productions.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so to start it off, what are your opinions on the Bears Civil War and what do you what do you make of it all over Twitter?
Yeah, I think the whole thing is really stupid, like especially with how toxic it has become, especially as of late. I mean, I know the war has been going on since September of last year, ever since Fields started out the season kind of rough. Obviously, Caleb Williams, had a fantastic 2022. He had a great start to 2023. So, naturally, a lot of people were already on the Caleb Williams train back then, which there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But I just think that right now there's not a lot of reason going on. It's more of just like calling each other names, fighting with each other, which I don't understand at all. Like, we're all Bears fans. We should be happy, in my opinion, with either outcome, because I still think Fields can be a decent quarterback, especially if you trade back with the number one pick, put an absolute super team around him. I still think Fields can be that guy. But if you don't think Fields can be the guy, Caleb Williams is there as well. And I think he's a very talented quarterback prospect that probably is a better prospect coming out of college. Not probably, I think definitely is a better prospect coming out of college than Justin Fields was. And I totally get that side of the coin as well. Like, starting over, restarting the quarterback clock, giving Poles his own guys. So I think both sides definitely have their merits to it, right? So I don't understand why Bears fans are super pissed at each other, online, but that's how social media goes. You guys know, like, it's not a lot of, reasoning going on. It's a lot of just like, back and forth debate. So I'm very happy for it to be over though, because I personally do believe that next week we are going to get a decision on either trading Fields or trading the number one overall pick. Right now it is looking more likely like we're going to trade Fields, just according to all the reports, like Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Brad Biggs, like virtually everybody has said that we're going to trade Fields. So that's what I expect to happen at this point in time, but you can never really know in the NFL. Like, crazy things do happen all the time, and this maybe could be the biggest smokescreen of all time, which would be very surprising. But at this point in time, I do think we're going to trade Fields, and I can't wait for the debate to be over, especially for Fields' sake too, because no Fields went on um, the podcast with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Equanimeous St. Brown and talked about like how much he's just not liking like having to go online and seeing this debate happen every single day. Like, that's why he unfollowed the Bears on social media, which I know a lot of people like took offense to, but who cares? I mean, I don't care about that shit, obviously. So it's very, divisive right now, but we should be coming to a decision pretty soon, I feel like.
I mean, it's so unfortunate that like we're even questioning Fields' character at this point. Uh, I mean, that was unquestioned for 3 years, and suddenly, now that in all likelihood it's looking like Caleb Williams, there's a new narrative that comes out. I mean, a radio host literally called him a coward, which is beyond me. I mean,
It's very crazy.
it's like obviously if the Panthers weren't an abysmal NFL franchise and we had a top three pick in this draft, I don't think there would be any questions about the fact that Fields would be our quarterback going into 2024. So, to sit there and say like start bashing Fields to change the narrative and rather than, uplift Caleb Williams, I think that's really sad. But
And that's what we do with every quarterback, right? Like, even with Mitch Trubisky, which I know Mitch Trubisky didn't have nearly as many supporters as Fields does, but later on in the Mitch years, especially when we knew he was going, like, obviously everybody attacked him a lot. And same with Jay Cutler too. Same with like virtually every player. Even like Allen Robinson, Dave Montgomery, like all these guys, when they leave the Bears, they get a lot of hate because we want to convince ourselves that we're making the right call, which oftentimes we do make the right call trading the players at the time we do, but it's obviously like we shouldn't be hating on the players as much as we do either.
Yeah, especially with like Bill Zimmerman also mentioning like brand new reports from his rookie year, how he was abrasive with Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. Like, it really just rubbed me the wrong way because why are these coming up now? Like, as soon as he's about to leave, these reports come out now just to make it seem more like okay that we're getting rid of him. It's something that's really sad that the Chicago media loves to do, and it's not really much we can do to control it. But that leads me to my next question for you is, if you were like all like politics aside, like if you really had the true decision, would you roll with Caleb Williams or Justin Fields? Asides from like just the picks, like do you think Justin Fields could be a successful player in this league, and what would you do as Ryan Poles?
Yeah, that's a really tough question because I literally think both sides could be equally as good. Like the thing with it's not only Fields versus Caleb Williams, it's Fields and a super team potentially versus Caleb Williams, right? Because if you pick Caleb at number 1, I'm not saying you can't still build up the roster because you can with pick number 9 with all the cap space and all that, but if you trade back for number 1, you get the biggest haul in NFL history, which could be Marvin Harrison Jr., multiple other first-round picks. So you could build an absolute god squad right around Fields. So that's kind of more of the debate. It's not only Fields versus Caleb Williams, but I'll be honest, like if I'm Ryan Poles, like in his shoes right now, I probably would draft Caleb Williams because it's safer for me, right? Because if you draft Caleb, you get more time as a GM. Like if you stick with Fields and Caleb goes on to be a good rookie, other rookie quarterbacks do well, like you're fired immediately. You have no chance after that year. Like you're going to be gone after 2024, right? So I just think that the smarter choice probably, maybe not smarter, but like the safer choice for Poles is trading Fields and going with his own guy, because you get to have that rookie contract as well, which is pretty important, right? Because if we do keep Fields and he breaks out, like we're going to have to pay him 45, 50 million per year. I mean, like Dak Prescott is going to make 60 million per year next year, right? So like Fields obviously is going to command like at least 45, 50 million, which it's going to be a little bit harder to build a team around that quarterback at that point in time. And Fields has to be like amazing, or maybe not amazing, but like the team has to win a lot of games, right? If we do keep Fields, it's just going to be a lot of pressure on Poles immediately, where if you do go with Caleb Williams, you probably don't have to make the playoffs right away. I know us fans do want them to make the playoffs right away, but from the front office point of view, from like Kevin Warren's point of view, I think that if we do draft Caleb Williams, if he wins 7-8 games, barely misses the playoffs, I still think Poles would be safe. I think Eberflus potentially could be safe as well, as much as us fans would hate to hear that because he's a rookie quarterback. But, I do think that from Poles' point of view, Caleb is the way to go because he also is a very fantastic quarterback prospect, right? Like, I think that that's the only reason why we're even debating moving on to Fields, because of how good Caleb Williams actually is. Like against, the competition he went up against in college football was not always the best competition, but, he put together really good, stats, obviously really good tape. And when he did go up against, really good teams, he did lose a lot of games too, but the team around him was not really that good at USC, especially the second year. And if you look on tape, like there was not a lot of, a lot of good things available to him sometimes, where he did have to hold on to the football, make plays out of structure, and hang on to the football a little bit too long. That's why his time to throw was super long as well. But like I think a lot of Bears fans will be very excited if Caleb Williams is the guy as well. But if I'm Ryan Poles, I think I am going after Caleb. But me myself, maybe I would stick with Fields because I'm a big Fields fan, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to change. But I think either way, the Bears should be in good hands.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think with how unique the scenario is right now, you really do have to just like be safe and take Caleb Williams. Even then, like of course this will probably piss off a bunch of Bears fans, but if we win like 5 or 6 games, we should definitely not fire Matt Eberflus, because that is literally recreating what happened with Justin Fields, where it's just you have a new head coach, new offensive coordinators, and it's rinse and repeat. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we only win 5 or 6, then maybe you could fire him. But like you mentioned, like then you would be restarting his coaching, the coach again, which that's not ideal, right? Like with Justin Fields, we did that. With Mitch Trubisky, we did that. So I still wish we fired Eberflus and just started fresh with like Ben Johnson, Jim Harbaugh, actually. But what's in the past is in the past, so we can only move on at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, though, I think he's a good enough prospect to walk in day one, especially with the structure around him and potentially take us to the playoffs. I mean, you look at teams in the past who've had the number 1 overall pick There's not a team that is as good as the Bears right now who've had this position where a rookie quarterback as good as Caleb Williams is walking in. I mean, a lot of the times these elite prospects are expected to carry below average rosters in their rookie year. That's not the case with Caleb Williams. I mean, he's going to have a premier first round pick to go along with him. So I'm very excited about the upcoming season. I'm going to approach it with patience. Every rookie quarterback deserves to have a little patience, just given the nature of the position. But I do think that this could be very much a playoff team with Caleb Williams. And I guess just because it's kind of fun to ask, what's your nightmare scenario with our number one overall pick? I know Sam, he's definitely not a fan of Drake May or Jaden Daniels or any quarterback aside of Caleb Williams. For me, I'm more okay with that. But what's your nightmare scenario?
Yeah, like I'd also be okay with Drake May, I feel like, because he kind of reminds me of Justin Herbert, just like with how tall he is. And like obviously he wasn't like in college football, he didn't like light it up oftentimes, but I feel like he can be developed into a pretty good quarterback just because of the tools that he has. So like I'd be okay with Justin or with Drake May, obviously, but Jaden Daniels, I don't know about that, right? Because we already have somebody a little bit similar in Justin Fields, where I feel like if you want to go after like the same style of quarterback, I'd probably just keep Fields and trade back from the number one pick, get an absolute haul. Like, why would you stay at number one to select Jaden Daniels when he's definitely not going to be the number one, quarterback selected? But aside from that, like the only other scenario that's even like remotely possible is like JJ McCarthy at number one, right? Because Ryan Poles loves his hometown guys. JJ McCarthy grew up like, in the suburbs of Chicago, and I guess that could kind of make sense from Ryan Poles' point of view. I don't think it's going to happen though, obviously. And if that did happen, I would just not be a Bears fan anymore, just because that would be extremely stupid. And you're basically getting a game manager at number one. Like, obviously, I don't hate JJ McCarthy, but I don't think it's going to be much more than like a Kirk Cousins probably in the NFL. Which Kirk Cousins will be the best quarterback in Bears history. So like, I'm not trying to hate on him, but I think if you are moving on from Fields, you have to get a true difference maker at the quarterback spot. And that's only Caleb Williams and Drake May, in my opinion, right now.
Ironically, I think if we did select JJ McCarthy, that probably would unite our fan base in the wrong way. Everybody would be going to Poles' head.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the reaction on draft night would be worse than when we drafted Mitch Trubisky. I don't know what your guys' reactions were when we drafted Trubisky, but I was super pissed. Like, I actually turned off the TV that night because I had no idea who even Trubisky was really, and I was not expecting the Bears to draft a quarterback back then. So I was pissed.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's like if you're Ryan Poles, it's a very easy decision. Just don't overthink it. Trade Justin Fields for whatever best compensation you can get, and then just take Caleb Williams, because even if he's a bust, you did the best you could. Like, you took the number one overall pick. Like, if he busts, then Chicago's cursed. Like, there's no reason to overthink it and trade down to number two and take Drake May because maybe this, maybe that. If you really think Caleb Williams is the blue chip elite quarterback, just do it. Just take him 101, and that'll be the first time in Bears history that we'll take a QB first overall. And we'll see if he'll finally break the curse. And it's kind of funny because he wears number 13, saying he does not care about any curses. And the Bears have a pretty big curse of not having a franchise quarterback. So we'll see if he can wear 13 and end that curse for us.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if he does not work out, like I swear to God, like I probably won't watch football anymore at that point, just because I've been through so much at this point where, especially if Fields goes on to be a good quarterback elsewhere, like how would you be a Bears fan anymore at that point where you had the quarterback in your building, the quarterback you select flops, which hopefully that doesn't happen, but it would be very hard to support this franchise if Caleb does not work out, because you're probably not going to get many other opportunities to draft that high again, right? Unless Caleb is an absolute flop, right? So
yeah,
it's very tough decision right now for Ryan Poles for sure, and hopefully it works out.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, aside from the quarterback, because it's just so toxic right now. Like for this offseason, like what free agents do you really want Ryan Poles to target, and like what position groups do you think really do need replacements? And like besides from like center, like of course there's a lot like that's a glaring need. But like, what is like one position you'd like something to be upgraded, and then just free agents you'd like to target?
Yeah, receiver has to be the biggest position that we have to target. 100%. I feel like through the draft and free agency. I'm kind of debating though, like if it's worth it to do that in free agency because you are gonna have to overpay guys in free agency, especially at the receiver spot. Mike Evans is probably gonna make 25 million per year, and he's probably coming back to the Bucks anyway, so we can cross that off our list. Probably T Higgins, I think already got franchise tagged right like a few days ago, so he's not gonna be available either. So like Michael Pittman potentially could be available from the Colts, which I feel like would be a fantastic number 2 for the Bears. But that also would be very pricey. But if you want to look at like lower tier like signings, like maybe Curtis Samuel could be available for like 8-9 million per year. I think that would be a fantastic number 3 option for the Bears. Where you got to remember, like last year, Fields, besides for DJ Moore, did not have much at the receiver spot. Like Mooney took a big step backwards. EQ St. Brown barely played. Tyler Scott did not have a good rookie year. Chase Claypool got shipped out of Chicago very, very fast, and last year. So we have not had good number 2 and number 3 options for our quarterback the last year, which I feel like we need for Caleb Williams, especially. Like a rookie quarterback has to have multiple options to throw to. So I would like the Bears to go after one in free agency if possible, just to be like the number 3. And the number 2, I'd probably want to target in the NFL draft with our pick number 9, because I feel like there's more like high upside, players available in the draft from that point of view. But aside from the receiver spot, I would say, like you mentioned, like center, that's a big target area. I know that Brad Biggs already talked about the Bears potentially targeting a center in free agency, and that could be an area where they do spend a little bit bigger. So like a Lloyd Cushenberry could be available, who I think he would fit the scheme to some extent. He would be pretty expensive though, because I know he has had a couple good years there. So, if Ryan Poles does want to, really splurge, that could be a guy. But otherwise, like Evan Brown from the Seahawks, I believe he's from, he already knows Shane Waldron's scheme. He's not a great starter, though, so he kind of be like that Lucas Patrick type of center, which I know Bears fans don't want to hear that, but like that's something that could happen, right? Because he knows the scheme, he knows the offensive coordinator, he'd be pretty cheap, and he would not prevent you from drafting a center in the NFL draft either for competition, which I hope Ryan Poles would still do. So yeah, receiver, center, edge is also a big one, right? Because on the other side of Montez Sweat, we only have DeMarcus Walker right now, who's fine, but he's not like a true premium player. So if you do want to go after a premium player, Danielle Hunter could be an option, who I know the Bears have been kind of linked to. I know there's like an article on Bleacher Report that came out about the Bears potentially having interest in Danielle Hunter, but he would be very expensive and he is getting a little bit older. So that would have to be like a shorter term deal, maybe like a 2 or 3 year deal where it's, probably 25 million per year, 22 million per year, but it could work out, right? The next couple of years, if we do have a top defense here in Chicago. But other like cheaper options, maybe like a Bryce Huff from the Jets could be an option. Who else? Like Brian Burns potentially, if he doesn't get franchise tagged, which would be like amazing, right? To like fleece the Panthers again to take their best pass rusher. That'd be pretty cool if you are Ryan Poles, but he'd be pretty expensive as well. But I feel like those are probably the top 3 areas of need on the roster right now. Like if you look at the Bears roster, there honestly are not as many holes on it as I thought there would be this year when you go from position to position. Now we do need more depth, obviously, like tight end number 2, offensive line depth, receiver depth. We could still use more backups, but for the most part, I feel like on offense and defense, we do have a lot of guys on this team. We just need to add a couple more like premier playmakers and better depth as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think edge rusher is definitely a position that needs to be addressed. Now, me personally, I actually don't really like overpaying for guys in free agency. Like I know Bryce Huff just came off a really underrated season with the Jets, and I think he's going to be worth whatever team pays him. But for me, I'm really a big fan of going in the draft and getting a premier pass rusher. A lot of people are talking about taking Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors at 9, taking, a receiver with our second first round pick. I kind of have a different opinion on that. I think if you go and take an edge rusher who's on a cheap rookie contract and you're able to develop him alongside Montez Sweat, I mean, you could be talking about potentially a top 5 defense very, very soon because, I love Daniil Hunter. I think he'd be a great immediate addition, but like you said, he's on the older side. He costs a lot of money. But you could get a guy like Dallas Turner potentially at 9, a freakish athlete, someone who Matt Eberflus would love to get his hands on and develop. And you could be looking at a premier pass rusher in 1 to 2 years. So also to talk about the receiver depth in this class is just astonishing. Like there's so many great receivers. So while I do love the idea of like a Romo Dunze at 9, I think assuming that we do trade Fields for like an early second round pick, I love the idea of taking a receiver there because you could get some really good value.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, especially with how many good receivers are in the class, like you mentioned, like you could probably get, maybe Xavier Worthy or Adonai Mitchell. Maybe he's not going to be there, but like you're going to get a solid player in the second round. Where if you don't want to go after Roma Dunze at pick number 8, or pick number 9, which who's to say he's even available at that point, right? Like both Odunze and Neighbors could be gone by pick number 9. In which case you have to, draft that at pick number whatever second round pick you have, right? So. That is a good point, though. If you want to go after edge, you could do it early because the edge depth in this class is not as good, I feel like, as compared to the receiver depth. But it all depends on like what Ryan Poles thinks about how truly good these receivers are. If he does think the top 3 options could be like number 1s in the NFL, then maybe he still would go after one at pick number 9. But I think the combine also does matter a lot too, because obviously Ryan Poles does want to go after the best athletes. In the draft. So, we'll see what happens next week with the NFL Combine as well.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think it may seem a little bit far-fetched, but I really could see with how the NFL views JJ McCarthy as a top 10 pick, even though it would be a monstrosity. If he goes to number 8 or the Giants or whoever, I could see a fall with like even Malik Neighbors. Like you never know. Like if he fell to number 9, you have to sprint to the podium and tell Roger Goodell, Malik Neighbors, because he really is a franchise changer. And if we have like a wide receiver core of DJ Moore and Malik Neighbors, it'd be almost crazy. And that would help us like address our edge position maybe in the second round. Or I'm usually a proponent of the draft, but I'd have no issue paying Daniil Hunter premium money. That man terrorized Justin Fields in both Vikings games. Like that guy is a freakish athlete. I know he's on the other side of 30, but like he is definitely a crazy athlete, and I feel like he could make an instant impact on our defense, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll bring up another point that I feel like is not being talked much at all, which is there's a premier left tackle in this draft, a couple even. I think Joe Alt is one of the most pure prospects, can't miss. Like to me, he's up there with Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams in terms of just how good he is. And we had these conversations around the quarterback being a premier position, and if you can go upgrade that position, then you go do it with Caleb Williams. I love Braxton Jones. I think he's a very solid tackle, especially at the value that we got him at. But I think Joe Alt is a guy who you could plug in at one of the most important positions on your offense and immediately have stability for hopefully a decade. So I don't think it's a bad idea at all to pair a young quarterback with a very high upside left tackle or even a high floor. He's just a great prospect all around. Not talked about much, but I think left tackle could definitely be in play.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, especially with Ryan Poles, drafting O-line last year, and he's a former offensive lineman himself. So if you see something like really special in Joe Alt or even Olu Fashanu, like definitely possible, right? And no Bears fans really talking about that right now. Like none of our mock drafts really have offensive line being addressed in the first round because it's not like a need per se. But if it is like a BPA type of thing where he's the best player available on your board, then maybe you could do it. But I am also a little bit concerned with, obviously, like if he's a good prospect, maybe he is going to be good right away. But putting a rookie left tackle, with a rookie quarterback, maybe that could be a little bit concerning, because obviously a lot of rookie tackles also have their fair share of struggles right away. So, with Braxton Jones, like he's already been here for 2 years. He is like a little bit more seasoned where maybe he could be better right away. But from like a long-term point of view, definitely, yeah, like Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt could be better, higher tier left tackles than Braxton Jones. But if you do draft one of them, I think you have to trade Braxton Jones because he's too good to keep on the bench, in my opinion. Like he is definitely like at least average in the NFL. And if you have an average left tackle, that's actually a very high value asset, I feel like, in the NFL, especially on a rookie contract where you probably could get like a third round pick out of him. Maybe a second round pick, probably not. But like I think I would trade Braxton at that point just to get another asset because he's too good, I feel like, to keep, on the bench.
Or you could move him to left guard. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where like great tackles move into the interior, and they're just as good.
Yeah, I think his build is not really guardish. He's super long.
He'd be a freakishly big guard for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely getting a third round pick would be amazing for that. But I think he sticks with Braxton Jones, or maybe he takes Olu at number 9. It's really not the pretty pick, but such a Ryan Poles pick for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys think like defensive line could be addressed? Like not edge rusher, but like defensive tackle, for example, our Illini prospect in the draft. Do you guys think there's any chance John selected the number?
I think it really depends on what happens on the board. If JJ McCarthy really is this top 10 pick and like a premier receiver falls to us like Rome or Malik, we will just draft them. That's what I think he should do. Or if they're both gone and the tackle of his choice is gone, I could see him trading down to around the range of like 15, 16, or maybe with like the Vikings with like 13, if there's a QB still available, like a JJ McCarthy or whoever, and they could choose Johnny Noon. And I would definitely not be attested to that because that is like, we definitely get a first rounder next year. And because we're trading out of the top 10, plus we get a damn good prospect in the middle. And that would be very good to pair with Gervon Dexter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan Poles wants to trade back no matter what. Like, obviously, like with pick number 1, he's probably not going to trade back if he does select Caleb Williams. But knowing Ryan Poles, he definitely wants to get the extra assets next year. So I could definitely see that, man. Like, if we trade back to, 14, 15, get a first-round pick next year, that could end up working out really well for the Bears to still get, first-round elite player in Johnny Newton, who I feel like is being very underrated right now. I know he did have surgery on his foot or something like that in January, which might bring him down draft boards a little bit, but he was like truly dominant for the Illini the last couple of years. So, that'd be a very good addition for the Bears if they do trade back for sure.
Yeah, I went to a couple Illini football games, and he's very noticeable on the field. I mean, he looks like a man among boys. Yeah, I think that covers everything with this Bears offseason. I want to thank you again, Rashab, for coming along and talking with us. It was really great to have you.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me on. Good luck with the podcast. And I just hope the Bears make the right decision this offseason, man. I mean, no matter what it is, like obviously we'll be supporting whoever the quarterback is, but I am just truly praying that Ryan Poles does get it right. And I honestly do trust him too, because he's done so much good the last couple of years where I think he will get it right, but I do have to see it to believe it.
I agree. Hoping all the best.
Yes, sir.
We're with you.